It is Monday, the 22nd day of a gray and cold month, at least here in Indiana. It is January 22nd. Welcome to another edition of Mental Health Monday. I'm Mayor Chris Jensen of Noblesville, Indiana. I say that because I know we have listeners from all over the world, really, Kristen. We're becoming world famous on this conversation, which is great because that's what we want when everybody tuning in who wants to focus on mental health. I am joined once again by a good friend of mine, a true public servant in every definition of the word, Kristen Boice, the owner of Pathways to Healing Counseling here in Noblesville. Good morning, Kristen.
Good morning, Mayor Jensen. It's so good to be with you today.
Awesome to be with you as always as we kick off 2024. Hard to believe that we're coming up on 4 years since you and I embarked on this journey together. I oftentimes get asked, what has been the highlight of my first term? What am I most proud of? And it is always this discussion around mental health. So thank you for your contributions to it. We're going to continue to lean in. In fact, I'm going down to the legislature this week to lobby them on some additional funding for cities around the state of Indiana for mental health resources. So this has become a passionate project of mine as it has been a life's work of yours. So welcome everyone to this conversation. We're going to kick off 2024 today with a conversation around the top 10 things you can do to improve your overall mental health in 2024. Very timely for folks who are making resolutions, which Kristen, you might even touch at the very beginning about resolutions and how to manage expectations around resolutions. As I know, I'm sure you're working a lot with your private clients on this topic as well this time of year. But and so we're excited for this journey. If you are tuning in for the first time, feel free to say hi. Even if you're not tuning in for the first time, feel free to say hi in the chat. If you have any questions, put those in the chat. We'll try to answer on the fly the best we can. And if we can't, we'll get back to you at a later date with more information. But before we start any of this discussion, we're going to go back to some bare bones basics here with some square breathing. And I'll let Kristen lead us through that exercise.
Thank you. And thank you, Mayor Jensen, for the work you're doing on mental health. It is a huge ripple effect in our world right now. So every little thing anybody does and the big things you're doing are so appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you.
So deep breathing is on my top 10 list for this new year. If you've been tuning in, you know I'm passionate about this. It is to help regulate our nervous system, to release the stress, the tightness, and the tension in your body, to come back to center and come back to an anchored, grounded, calm place in your body. And if you're in pain, emotional pain, physical pain, and we know through labor, they teach us if you're birthing a child to breathe. And this is the number one strategy I start every single client session with. So we can start using a muscle. It's kind of like working out. Like, let's start using the muscle. So when you are feeling overwhelmed throughout the day, you already have a strategy and an anchoring point to go back to. So we start with our feet on the floor. That's a grounding to center our body. Or you can feel yourself in the seat that you're sitting in, kind of moving your shoulders back and down. We're opening up our capacity to take in a deep breath. So we're going to inhale through our nose for 4, the count of 4. We're going to hold for 4, and then we're going to slowly release out our mouths like you're cooling soup, or if you're teaching kids cooling a cookie, for 8 to get the maximum benefit of the breath. We'll do 2 breaths together. So feet on the floor, feeling yourself in your seat, big deep inhale through your nose. And release. You can see we really took our time on that exhale. You can see our shoulders drop. You can feel the release in your nervous system. Let's do one more, a big deep inhale through your nose. Hold and release slowly. You can see we're slowing things down. We're so busy doing our to-do list, working, doing everything we need to get done throughout the day. While you're doing other things, I welcome you to do the breath at the same time. So we can do 2 things at once. We can come back to center. We can breathe through it as we're doing other things like driving, maybe a chore at home. Maybe you're dealing with the kids. Maybe you're dealing with someone at work that has an intensity to them. Come back to your breath, which brings you back to the moment that you're in right now.
I love it. I always say it seems like such a simple, basic thing. And our body is programmed, Kristen, to breathe on its own as time goes on. So you're asking us to kind of that intentionality around this breath is key. You mentioned that I do it a lot in the car as I drive because I get frustrated with other drivers, and I'm sure everybody else does that too. Sorry, I'm moving my computer here. And so it can be done at all times. And I will also say, as a parent, you're a parent as well. That is a great exercise to not shadow, but demonstrate for your kids. And if they see you doing it, and we encourage our kids to breathe as well. And even our 2.5-year-old who has gotten a little bit better about deep breaths when we get worked up. So awesome exercise. Thank you for that. It does make me feel instantly more relaxed and ready to embark on the day or the conversation or whatever it may be. So let's pivot a little bit. Happy 2024. It is the first month of the year. It is a dark month. It's a cold month. It's a gray month. So there's a lot of maybe emotions going on in your head and your body that you're feeling. Maybe you are ready to tackle the conversation more around mental health in you or your family in 2024. So we want to be a resource for you. And so Kristen has put together a kind of a top 10 list of ways that you can improve your mental health. So I'm going to let you start running with that, Kristen. I'm going to probably chime in throughout. And if you want to, sorry, that's my month-and-a-half long cough I've had. If anyone else wants to chime in at any point in time with questions or comments about any of these things, we welcome that. So with that, the floor is yours.
First, let's acknowledge how much the weather impacts us emotionally. We can't underestimate that. Scientifically, it's proven because we have less sunlight. It does impact kind of the chemicals that you're producing in your body, the serotonin, the dopamine. So just kind of notice that the weather does impact you. And I want to hold all the tender, loving, empathic space. If you're navigating depression, anxiety, you're feeling not good enough, you're struggling with shame, and maybe you're going through pain, a loss, some hard things right now, just know that this is a safe place to come and that we welcome you here. So I just wanted to say that because mental health right now is so hard. I mean, that we're having a significant rise in depression and anxiety. So let's just come together to have this conversation. And having said that, we have a new year and people say new you. I just want to say new year, and let's get baby steps to go one step at a time, because that feels too daunting. That's why people quit. There's research that says this is the time everybody's given up. Like they're done. They feel like it was too much, too fast, and they can't do it. Let's just pick one thing right now to focus on your well-being. So here's 10, and I'm going to go through them pretty quickly, and then we can kind of break them down as we go along. And these are from my years of 25 plus years of doing therapy and research that work. Now, again, you're not going to do all these at once. So just pick and choose the ones that work best for you. Okay, number one, I need to talk about sleep. Sleep is hard. Is it not hard?
It's hard. It is really hard.
Because we have so much we have to get done during the day, and then we're up and our thoughts are racing. We're worried. We can't sleep. Sleep is a significant impact on mental health.
Kristen, do you ever I get sometimes if I wake up in the middle of the night, because I have a lovely 2.5-year-old that loves to climb in with us, but then I will sit there and I will fret over the fact that I can't go back to sleep. And so that will keep me awake.
Yes. And then we're like, well, I've only got 4 hours of sleep. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be so tired tomorrow. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get sick. Oh my gosh, our mind just is off to the races.
Yeah.
And I just want to say you are not alone, because we struggle with sleep. Sleep is, we're all like, there's a sleep deprivation study that says we are extremely sleep deprived. And so having said that, what time can you put yourself to bed? What do you need to do to get yourself to bed? Okay, here's a couple of tips. Less screens at night. Screens up.
Yep.
And what do I do sometimes when I can't sleep at night? In the middle of the night, I get on my phone.
Yeah.
Like the worst thing you could do. But
me and X spend a little time together at 3 a.m. Yeah.
Because you're like, I can't sleep. I might as well get up. Did I get on my phone? And now I'm really up for a couple hours. The screens, it is proven that screens impact your sleep. It's the facts. And so if our kids are on screens late at night, if we're on screens before bed, it will impact your sleep. Number 2, caffeine and alcohol. And this is all on my list. Substances impact mental health, and they impact your ability to sleep and cope with the hard things in life. So we're going to talk about how much caffeine are we consuming? Okay, we consume a lot of caffeine. How is that impacting your sleep? Do you need to cut yourself off at a certain time so your sleep is better? Do we need to reduce your alcohol intake? And these are hard things. Like I'm saying, do this and do that. I just want you to know, like I know this is hard. This is not easy. How much are we drinking? Like, are we dependent on alcohol to get to sleep?
Well, that's what I was going to comment, because some people will use that. Yeah, I need that glass of wine or something to wind down and fall asleep. But you're saying that actually can have a negative impact.
It's actually proven that it has a negative impact. It disrupts sleep cycles, scientifically proven. So this isn't just my anecdotal over all the years of doing this. This is actually scientifically proven that it disrupts your sleep and it impacts your mental health. What I'll say with couples is they're like, we got into a fight and I'm like, did you have anything to drink? Well, no, we just had a glass of wine. I'm like, oh, yep. That's going to impact your prefrontal cortex and your executive function. And you're going to blurt things out. You're going to be less regulated. You're going to say things that you didn't mean. You're going to be like, ooh, and take that back. It really does impact family systems. It impacts mental health, and it impacts your emotional well-being and your ability to handle. We use it as kind of a coping, a self-coping mechanism. And what it does is it makes things worse. It exacerbates the issues. So it impacts your sleep. It impacts your emotional and mental well-being. So we have to take an inventory of our substance and caffeine use. Substances include any kind of overuse of medications. Are we using too much alcohol? Are we, smoking too much? So what are we using to kind of to cope with what's happening? And can we get some help to replace that with something healthy? So those are really important. The next thing that's really important is some sort of activity. Are you moving? Are you walking your dog? Are you, right now my husband's doing laps inside the house. Mm-hmm. Like literally, he's like lapping the living room because it's sort of cold outside. So what are we doing to take care of moving our body?
So that's number two on our top 10 list.
But I'm kind of,
I should make sure we're moving from sleeping to, sorry. Okay.
Yeah. Sleeping to moving. That also helps with our sleep.
Yeah.
So if we move, we're going to sleep better. If we're watching our caffeine intake and our alcohol, we're going to sleep better.
I would say one of the things I've learned the most from you the past 4 years is that anxiety lives in the body. So you have to move in order to let it escape the body.
And emotions, think about motion. Emotions, they need movement, motion to be released from the body. So it's another way to think about emotions. Yes, we verbally need to process them. We need to also connect to where do those live in the body and how do we move them through? What motion do we need? We know exercise is helpful and journaling is helpful, but let's think about emotions as a way of, and movement as a way to move them up and out of the body so they're not being repressed and suppressed in the body. Number 3 is connections. In-person, face-to-face connections. And I'm seeing this more with our children and our teens, that it's impacting their mental health. So online social media isn't what is needed for their mental health. What's needed for their mental health and our mental health is to be face-to-face with another human being that can hold space, to listen well, be empathic. And I know this is hard. And if not, we need to find that maybe in a therapist or a professional or a support group. Being in person, we've got to start prioritizing that and change the narrative around that social media and technology is enough. That's nice. And we know it's impacting mental health. So make the priority to go to dinner with a friend or just meet up and walk with somebody or just, say, hey, do you want to meet up and grab some coffee? Whatever that looks like, once a week is my recommendation for clients. Like, let's get one-on-one with somebody once a week. And I know that requires putting yourself out there. Not everybody can do it. So we want to work on not taking things personally. If they say can't do it this time or can't get together this week, keep asking people that you feel safe with. So in-person connection is very important. Number 4, we need to be working on our inner child. What in the world does that mean? Why are we even talking about this? This is critical. When you are triggered by something says, someone does, let's say they cut you off in traffic and you're like, and you want to yell at them, that's our inner child. That is not our secure, regulated adult self. That's my teenage self saying, I got to get someplace, and I'm, out of control, or I'm yelling in my car. Not to make it wrong or bad. We're just noticing, oh, how old do I feel? I yell at my kid. How old am I acting? I'm having a tantrum while my kid's having a tantrum. It means I have some work to do around that age. So, for example, my parents got divorced when I was 8. So I have to kind of notice, that's my 8-year-old self needing some attention or needing some validation or whatever I'm needing. It's important I work through that, so I'm not putting that on my children or my friend or my husband. I'm taking care of that part. So inner child work, if you need a good book, it's called Homecoming by Dr. John Bradshaw. I'm all about resources. You can do this work. And it's important that you're really taking a look at your own triggers for your mental well-being, because you can work through it.
Yeah, that's one. This is one is a little more complex than some of the other ones. So can we stick on the inner child for a minute? And what is that? If someone's sitting there and be like, "What the hell are you talking about, Kristen?" What does that look like for people? Or how do you self-identify that? I guess.
Yeah. So the first thing that I work on is when I have this like part of me that comes out that let's take, for example, let's say you're getting dysregulated with your kids. Okay. I'm having a tantrum while I'm telling them, I'm like yelling and they're saying, and I'm telling them not to yell. Okay. I am now in a younger part of myself. I'm not in my adult self that is calm, that is, I'm not reactive. I'm centered. That's my centered, calm adult self. My dysregulated kind of inner child part just came out, and I need to take care of that and say, okay, take a deep breath. You're getting dysregulated. I have to take care of that part so that I don't make my kids responsible for caretaking me. So because I'm acting out of control, what's a younger part of myself. So for example, if someone is not regulated and they go, you guys are out of control, you're making me crazy, which I've said. Okay. So just hear me that I'm not like, oh, and I do this perfectly. I'm like, you guys need to just do what I tell you to do. So I don't have to yell at you. Okay. That is me. Now, yes, we want them to do what I'm asking them to do. I don't need to be yelling about it. I could say it in a calm way, like, I feel really frustrated right now because it's 3 times. And what is the holdup here? What is going on with you that we're not able to listen to me? That's my adult self. Feel the difference between the two?
So like yesterday when I was yelling at Emmy Kate for yelling, and I yelled at CJ for yelling at Emmy Kate, who then CJ reminded me that I was yelling at Emmy Kate. So why couldn't he yell at Emmy Kate? So that's exactly what was going on.
That's perfect example. Yep. It is, because we've all been there. I mean, so it'd be a disservice to be like, well, we just do this. Yeah. And then when they say that, it's like, oh.
Yeah, getting called out by your 12-year-old is cool. Yeah.
They do this. Mine do it all the time. Yep. And they're like, your inner child is coming out. And I'm like, okay, you're right. So it's like a reality check. Not that I want them to have to check me, but I can take the feedback and check myself.
Sure.
So this is the biggest one I'm saying that's more complex. So that's why I want to give you resources for everybody that's listening.
What was that book again?
It's called Homecoming by Dr. John Bradshaw. And it goes through each of your developmental stages in life, like 0 to 6 years old. Okay, what happened during that time? 6 to 9, that's another developmental phase. What was going on in your life then? 9 to 12. And then it goes through teen years. So you can kind of break down where you might have some processing emotions that did not get processed in real time based on what was happening in your life, because our parents didn't know that we needed to process emotions. In all fairness, they didn't have all this research now that says we need to process our feelings so we're not taking it out on other people. So this is why this work is so important, because we can pass it down generationally, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So that's some resources on inner child work. I've also done a lot on my podcast, Close the Chapter, if you want more on this, because I'm pretty passionate about it, because I see it makes the biggest difference on someone's emotional healing. Out of anything I do, this is it. This is what makes the biggest difference. Okay, so we have, I've written on my notes here. We've talked a lot about these, but gratitude, and how do we get to gratitude, not as an emotional bypassing, but as a way to come back to center.
Is this number 5?
This is number 5.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I just want to keep us on our top. I want to make sure we're labeling here. Number 5.
So number 5 is gratitude. And we've heard this for years, but now we have research to back it up, that it actually lights up a different part of your brain. It lights up the prefrontal cortex, which is that kind of calm, rational, centered part of the brain. So you're actually shifting kind of from fight, flight, freeze, or the fawn, which is that people-pleasing response, to a more centered place in the brain and in the body. So 5 items of gratitude a day. I recommend I do it every single day. It's a practice for me. And you don't have to stick to that, but these are ways to help you feel better. Can you find one thing? Like today I wrote, I am in a warm house. Okay, not everybody has a warm house. So I feel very grateful that in these cold temps that we have a warm house. So it's anything you can come up with that you feel like is making some sort of a positive impact in your life, or maybe it's something that was hard that you were able to get through and kind of get to the other side of. So write those out every single day. Number 6, I am a big passionate believer in write it out to get it out. And a lot of people are like, I don't want to journal. I don't want to write it out. I'm telling you, doing this for so long, the people that write it out, if they're stuck on something, they're stuck on a decision, they're looping, they can't get out of a looping thought. When they write it out, it's almost like a release and they're able to get to the other side of it. So if you get those racing thoughts, those looping thoughts that you feel stuck on, when you write it out, it can move it to the other side. So then, yeah.
Well, I would ask a question about this because I've spoken openly on this show about Julie Jensen and I's different way of communicating. She is a write it out person. I am a speak it out person, as you can probably imagine, just my day job. I guess one of my questions is writing it out a replacement for taking time then to speak it out? If it's like something that needs to be said with somebody else, can you talk about the importance of that and how writing out is helpful, but is there still a place to then verbalize it later?
I love that question. I'm a both. I'm a verbal and a writer. Okay. And I think there's a place for both, and I think it's necessary for both.
Yeah.
I mean, healing can come if you don't write. I don't want to make it so absolute because I don't believe in that. I believe everything is gray, and you can find healing in a multitude of different ways that work for you. We just know through research that, verbally processing and writing it out accelerates the healing process. So you can do one or the other. I just think when you have both, you can get more healing. And I think it just accelerates it. So excellent question. Because the next number, are we on number 8? Number 8 is talking with somebody. So if you have put off dealing with something, and we want to hold space for that. Like we have what's called the adaptive parts of you that needed to adapt to get through something, and it can keep you stuck. So if there's something you need to process, a trauma, a loss, and you've put it off, maybe you've put off an addiction and you are kind of ready to face it, I want to encourage you. It will change your life. I promise you it will be hard. I mean, I'm not going to mince it. It's hard and it's worth it. So this is the time to not put it off any longer, to work through that fear and step into the faith that this is going to be for your highest good. And you are going to be a generational changer. You will change not only your life, but the generations to come.
Yeah, I want to chime in on that a little bit. First, I want to ask for some resources in a second about where people can go if they're like, all right, I'm ready to see a therapist or whatever. Where do I go? I will just say, personally, as a 39-year-old male, I have seen in the past what I call a life coach, which is a therapist. And I always tell people I'm open about that. I try to be. I think it's important to be. It's one of the best things I've ever done for myself, to have somebody else here, and help me process, challenges I have or what. And like I said, you can call it a life coach, you can call it whatever you want to call it, whatever makes you feel good. But it is one of the best things you can do for yourself, and you will thank yourself and you'll wonder how you lived this long without having that. So I just want to say, I just encourage folks to reach out. But where would they turn, Kristen, if they're kind of like, where do I go?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, and I also see a therapist. The therapists need to be seeing therapists. So we're not exempt. And I'm a big believer in it, or it wouldn't be saying it. Psychologytoday.com You can go on there, look for, read somebody's bio and see who might resonate with you. Go with your gut. It's important. Sometimes the first time you see someone, you're like, not the best fit. And so there also is community mental health. If you need that route, that's important to know. And I firmly believe that a trauma therapist has some really deep, well-versed training in inner child, trauma, loss, and the body. So I like what we call EMDR therapists or brain spotting therapists. And I know these are kind of technical terms, but you can look up EMDR therapist in Indiana or wherever you are. So, and you can look up, there's many different modalities that are helpful. You have to find the therapist is the most important fit. Can you talk to this person? Do you feel safe with this person? When selecting a therapist, that's the key. Can you see yourself opening up and maybe telling this person something you've never told anybody? That starts the healing journey. Is your decision to decide, I'm going to make an investment. I'm going to skip the Starbucks. I'm going to invest in my mental well-being, or I'm going to skip something, or I'm going to go to community mental health, or whatever that looks like Aspire here locally. There's many in all areas. It's just a matter of typing in, Google search therapists near, and then put your area. So, and then we always have 988. That's available for free. They are trained clinicians on the other end of the line. And I want to make sure people know about that. Have it in your back hip pocket. Tell your kids about it. 988. It's the 911 for mental health.
Love it. Thank you for tuning in on that.
Yeah. So we're on number 9, and we're going to go quick because I already talked about this. We're going to watch our substances and our intake of, and that includes social media. I'm including that in substances. I feel like any kind of addictive, if we're addicted to caffeine, we're addicted to social media, maybe we're binge watching something. Let's not make it wrong or bad. Let's just see, how do I feel after I'm done doing that? Do I feel like I've wasted time? Do I feel like it's really helped my mental health? And if it does, okay, but we need to really do a pulse on how much we're consuming and how dependent are we on those substances to kind of deal with what's going on. And we know that actually isn't helpful, that keeps us stuck. So we need to watch our substance use intake. And the last thing that I want to say that's important is our defensiveness. And that's because when we're defensive, we're not growing. We're actually keeping ourselves stuck. And so when we're defensive within feedback, or someone's in our relationships, or with our kids, it's a sign for us to kind of go, oop, okay, I need to be self-aware. What's going on here? Something got hit within me. And that's something we don't talk about as mental health, but I see it as it's built on our trauma or our pain, or we're fear of abandonment or getting hurt or getting rejected. And there's called boundaries and defensiveness. Defensiveness is when we're getting reactive. Boundaries is when I say what's okay and what's not okay. Those are two different things.
Is there a way defensiveness is key? Because I've struggled with this at times, all the time actually. Is there a healthy way to ask like a spouse or someone to help you keep accountable around the defensive conversation, or is that just going to make you more defensive?
It usually doesn't work, because we're like, it kind of turns into kind of a parent-child dynamic.
Yeah.
And then we get mad at that. So then we're like, now you're telling me what to do. It usually doesn't go well. So I recommend someone outside of relationship, like a therapist, a coach, a mentor, or a friend, to kind of, if you guys can make an agreement to help kind of keep that.
I know that's always difficult, but you do, if you're trying to work on something, you want to be called out on it, but it always a matter of who is that person who's willing to talk into you. And that's just,
I can give feedback to my partner and say, hey, I feel sad because it feels like you're not able to hear what I want, what I'm trying to tell you.
That's awesome.
That's different versus you're defensive. Why are you so defensive?
Yeah.
I'm going to get more defensive.
Yeah. Well, that was an incredible list, and you already hit it on the very end about 988. Because I was in the show by saying, if someone needs help right now, where do they turn? And it's 988. Please don't hesitate to use that number. Share it with friends and family. But Kristen, this was a incredible list to start us off. I'm looking forward to next month is February, which is Valentine's Day, and I think we'll talk a little bit about relationships. So be on the lookout for the next Mental Health Monday. But in the meantime, Kristen, thank you for giving of your time so generously. Thank you for all the people tuning in today. And we look forward to seeing you back here next month for another edition of Mental Health Monday. Stay safe.
Much.